want to bring in an engineer who has worked with antenna problems in the past, even testifying to government agencies on the topic. He's Rick Doherty. He joins me now. He's the research director at Evisioneering Group. Rick, thanks so much for stopping by. You've come with some of your toys, which is really the iPhone. And I just want to show our viewers, first of all, the iPhone 4. Those who haven't been able to. Okay, here you go. And you have tried to replicate this death grip, which is basically what I'm doing right now.
Yes.
And you've tried to replicate this many times. And what you're saying is that you have not found any antenna problems.
Actually, at 100 locations around New York, which is one of the more challenged AT&T areas, we haven't seen any of the problems in these two phones that are right in front of you.
Right. Well, then what explains, other people aren't dreaming, obviously.
Well, when you make 3.5 million of something, we think that's how many Apple has shipped so far in just 3 weeks. A fraction of 1%, there might be some problems. Might be a different work shift in manufacturing, a different part by manufacturer, but it seems to be below 1% from our tests and our consumer interviews.
And is that statistically insignificant?
It's actually much better. When you go to the store, not 100 TVs, you'll have more than 1 out of 100 having a problem. They go back to the store. So this is a very low number.
Okay. Some of the solutions being talked about, a possible recall, although that seems unlikely now from Apple. You were also talking about, and I also want to show viewers this, a band, right, that Apple could actually issue for free to their users. Is this all it takes to take care of the problem?
Well, actually, the ban makes a lot of sense, and we've seen that 19 out of 20 iPhone owners have always bought a case or some kind of a slip case. This phone here has a slip case that my daughter uses regularly, and it keeps your fingerprints off that shiny, nice stainless steel band, among other things. So for all the people who care about the fashion statement alone, those bands were selling before the iPhone antenna problem cropped up.
Right, and would it make sense for them to just issue them to all iPhone users?
It's certainly a possibility, perhaps some form of credit to those who are having problems, because again, we aren't seeing any lines at any Apple stores or Best Buy stores of people going back and complaining.
As an engineer, Rick, what do you think those in Apple right now are doing at this point to try to get to the bottom of this problem?
We're very sure this week it has been all hands on deck, that they've been putting people to work on this, working with their full food chain of compliance, going back to their Asian manufacturers, and I don't think they've ever put as much time onto a concern in the last 15 years that Jobs has been involved with the company.
But what would that entail? Walk me through what you imagine it would entail, trying to get to the bottom of this.
First, the science of finding out, because every phone is a serial number, are there complaints from this group of phones? Was it one cluster? Were they made on a bad Monday? Was there a change in supplier for those? So they'll go back to the food chain of suppliers and find out that just these sets have that problem. It's certainly not a widespread problem for this generation.
Are you surprised, though, that we had this exclusive report yesterday that a senior engineer had actually flagged a possible problem with these phones? From your experience, this must happen. We're talking about a prototype that I'm sure goes through many different variations. But are you surprised that somehow got lost?
I don't know if it got lost. It may have been one report out of many, because if you see with the stainless steel band in the phone you're holding up, if your fingers go across the gap in these, it can change the signal reception. It can change whether you can reach a tower or not.
Wait, what do you mean? If your fingers go...
Sure. The phone in your hand, you have a little split in the antenna here. It's covered by my case.
Okay.
And if your hand were to cover that, if your hand were perspiring, it would make a difference. And a good engineer in testing will say, hey, we discovered this problem. Maybe it was with one handset at the time. There may have only been 5 handsets in the whole world. And so I think the problem was acknowledged, but the scope of it certainly didn't happen until you hit manufacturing with 3.5 million units.
So is it possible it could have been in the manufacturing?
It could be in the manufacturing food chain.
Okay. All right, Rick, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Rick Doherty of Evisioneering Group talking about sort of the nuts and bolts of this Apple story.